Shalom, Chaverim. It's your Bisa with this week's Hebrew word. Now, the word of the week is chesed. And chesed means doing something loving and kind for someone else. Sometimes chesed means just doing the right thing, and sometimes it means going above and beyond what you might do for someone else. That is real chesed. Sometimes people use the word mitzvah to mean chesed. And they say that mitzvah means a good deed, but that's not really right. Chesed is one type of mitzvah. There's actually 613 mitzvot. And chesed describes one or some of them. But mitzvah means something that Hashem says we should do. Chesed, sometimes Hashem says we should need to do it, and sometimes it's just a good thing to do. And when we do chesed, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference for us, for the person, or the animal, or the world, and everything around us is better because of the chesed that we do. Now, I'm going to read a book that explains that, the importance of chesed. My book is called One Chesed. One Chesed. Even on sunny days, Lancaster Street seemed dark and gloomy. Neighbors did not smile at each other or talk to each other, and they certainly didn't do any chesed for each other. But one day, as Jay climbed his mulberry tree to pick its ripe fruit, he saw old Miss Thompson outside her house next door. Suddenly, he had a thought he'd never thought before. And he thought, I bet she can't climb trees. I could take some of these delicious berries. What a great chesed. When Jake arrived, Mrs. Thompson was surprised. She was delighted. She had enough fruit to make 2 pies. Right? So, we go back a page. Jake does chesed number 1 when he gives the fruit to Miss Thompson. Miss Thompson takes the fruit. She really likes the chesed that Jake did. Let's see what she does with it. She made 2 pies. And then she had a thought that she had never thought before. I loved getting these mulberries. I bet Mr. Riley next door would like one of my pies. And so we see Miss Thompson does some chesed and gives a pie to someone. When Miss Thompson arrived, Mr. Riley was surprised. Mr. Riley was delighted. As he ate the delicious pie, he looked out the window and watched the kids next door playing ball. Suddenly, he saw the ball land on the roof of his garage. And then he had a thought that he had never thought before. I bet I could help them. I bet I could get their ball. And now Mr. Riley is going to do chesed for the boys, like Mrs. Thompson did for him to give him the pie, just like Jake did the chesed to give her the berries. Now let's see if the chesed chain continues or if it just stops right there. When Mr. Riley handed them back their ball, Jeffrey and Joshua were surprised. They were delighted as they tossed it back and forth. They saw Mr. Lee hobbling on crutches to his front door. And then they had a thought that they had never thought before. Mr. Lee cannot rake the leaves in his yard, but we could. And now they're going to do the chesed of helping their neighbor and rake. When the boys arrived with their rakes, Mr. Lee was surprised. Mr. Lee was delighted at their chesed. Soon they were joined by Sammy Cohen from next door, carrying a rake. My computer is broken, so I can't finish my homework. I'll help you rake. Then Mr. Lee had a thought he'd never thought before. I am good at computers. Maybe I could fix Sammy's computer. And off Mr. Lee did some chesed after the chesed the boys did. After the chesed that he did to get the basketball down. After the chesed Ms. Thompson did to give him the pie. After the chesed that Jake did to give her the berries. You think the chesed's going to stop right there, or might it continue going? When Mr. Lee arrived, the Cohens were surprised. The Cohens were delighted. And before you know it, the computer was up and running again, thanks to Mr. Lee's chesed. When Mrs. Cohen sat down to check her email, she looked out her window and saw Ashley from next door riding a rusty old bike. Then she had a thought that she had never thought before. We have a practically new bike that Sammy has outgrown. It would be perfect for Ashley. When Mrs. Cohen arrived with the new bike, Ashley was surprised. Ashley was delighted. She rode her new bike around the neighborhood, waving and smiling and calling hello to her neighbors. The neighbors were surprised. The neighbors were delighted. Everyone waved and smiled right back. Soon, even on gray days, Lancaster Street seemed warm and sunny. And how had that happened? No one knew. Not even Jake realized that it had all begun with a basket of mulberries and one act of chesed. And Jake's one act of chesed of berries turned into a pie of chesed, and the pie of chesed turned into retrieving a basketball of chesed, and the basketball of chesed turned into raking the lawn of chesed, which turned into the computer repair of chesed, which turned into the bicycle of chesed. So Jake didn't know it, but I know that you know it, and that you really understand how important every piece of chesed you do is, and how much it can impact everyone around you. So a little chesed can make a great, gadol difference. So my chaverim, I want you to think of how you can do a little more chesed. Maybe it's sharing with other people in your house. Maybe it's being a good listener. Maybe it's doing something your parents ask you to do, like cleaning up, or even doing it before they ask you. That's a great chesed. So put on your thinking hats and get your yadayim ready to think about how you can do some little chesed to make a gadol difference. Shalom, chaverim.